अस्सलाम वालेकुम स्टूडेंट्स, आवाज़ आ रही है आपको?
Yes, sir.
Okay, assalamu alaikum students. We can start the lecture today. So let me share the screen. Okay, so now let's revise some of the things that we discussed last time about free writing and the critical writing. So let's review what actually we discussed last time. Uh, we discussed that when the writing process is slow and painful, we can focus on writing in a freestyle. Like for example, you try to write whatever you are thinking without critically observing your own writing. So basically, any writing process is a twofold process. One is the creative part, other is the critical part. The creative part is trying to say something or trying to convey whatever is in your mind, and the critical part tells whatever is written does not sound quite, and it should be written in some other way or expressed differently. So these two parts are contradictory or conflicting. And what we need over here, we need something to do with this. I mean, and that's why the technical writing becomes difficult at the beginning. So the best thing is to start with the writing, free writing. So what should be done? Writing is part of discovery of new knowledge. Of course, we already know that. And creative problem solving part should not be allowed to shut down by the critical mind while you are trying to write something or express something in a technical document. Free writing process is about writing thoughts down as they flow or they come up in your mind. For example, you have a problem, a research problem, for which you have for which you think that there might exist a solution and you need to write down something about that. So when you try to write that, if you keep your critical mind switched off at that point, you might be able to express everything on the paper, and maybe it might not look very nice, or maybe there might be a lot of grammatical errors, the sentences might not be correct, there might not be any flow, but at least you can write whatever you think is appropriate or correct from point of view, and you can write it very easily in that way. So in this case, you are in for the free writing, you are the writer and you are the reader. You are the reader. That means you are going to write the document for your own self. Of course, whatever you are going to write with the free writing might not be very comprehensive or might not be very useful for others, because there might not be any flow. There might be some missing parts or missing items or from the document, or there might be something which might be very difficult to understand, but you yourself might be able to understand that very easily because you have written that and you know what was in your mind. But maybe for the others it might be difficult. Now it doesn't make any difference, and you can carry on with that one with free writing as long as you are done with one section of your technical document. So the good thing is that you might be able to do that very easily without thinking or considering that whether it is correct or not. But at least it is documented on the paper and you can read it again after some time and you can review that, revise that, and so on. Now, what you need to do while free writing, you need to streamline the thoughts by writing down or putting it on the paper. Just let the thoughts pour out of your mind and you need to write them as whichever way you like. Okay? So the good thing is that you will be able to represent your mind on the paper. Although, as I told you, it might not make sense at all for the first time, or maybe it might be very it might be a surprise for you when you are going to read it for the first time once you are done writing. So later on, one will evaluate them. So basically you can read that whatever you have written and reorganize or edit it accordingly to make it more readable and maybe comprehensive even for your own self. Write down what is in your head without evaluating it. That is the basic idea of the free writing. Just hold on, students. Okay. So after some time, one should get back to what has been written. Okay, I told you last time, if you try to write something, that is one state of your mind that is guiding you to write the way you want. But once you are done writing, just leave it for some time, maybe 15 minutes or maybe 30 minutes. And after that, come back to your document and read it again. Now, when you are going to read that again, the state of your mind might be different and you will be surprised by your own writing that whatever you have written makes sense or not. It may not make sense at all for the first time, as I told you. Okay, we can pause for the azan. Okay, so let's resume the lecture. Um, so I think now you understand what is free writing and how that is going to help you to express your thoughts and ideas about the research problem and its solution. Mining for ideas. Now, one important thing is that when you are going to write something with a free mind or free writing, It will help you to dig into something new, and you might come up with some ideas which might be very helpful for your research problem or its solution. So start to unravel uh, what has been captured and mine for the ideas. Time to apply the critical mind and assess what makes sense. So now whatever you have written, if it makes sense to you, that is fine. Now you need to switch on your critical mind and try to read the document, whatever you have written. So your critical mind is going to ask questions about your own writing. So it's a kind of self-assessment which will help you to evaluate your own findings, your own observation, and the knowledge that you want to add as new knowledge, something new that you want to add to the new knowledge. So unscramble and go through the text and extract what is good out of that one. Because whatever you are going to write, some of the part of that writing will be very critical and important for your research finding. And try to identify that one. Maybe the rest of the things might be important, but not that much. So you need to focus on things that are good for your research solution. So questions arise during the free writing. That is one of the key factor or key parameter that is going to be helpful for you to reorganize and edit your document and make it professional from technical writing point of view. So meaningful questions means that there is a creativity. ठीक है? अगर for example, if you are going to write something about your research problem and that raises question even in your own mind, that is extremely good, because before somebody can ask you the same questions, you should be able to address them by yourself and justify about the answer and the findings that you are going to document later on. Attributes and reason of technical writing. Now, what is that? Now, once you are done with that one, for example, the first step was, let me summarize that whatever has been discussed so far. The first thing is that you are going to write with a free mind. It's called free writing. That means you just have to pour out the ideas, your concepts or your findings, and put them on the paper without thinking anything, whether that makes sense or not. The second point is that, or the second step is, now you need to switch on your critical mind. Before it was switched off. Now your critical mind, when you are going to read your own writing with the critical mind, a lot of things will come up. For example, there might be a few questions that might come up. There might be questions about your own writing style, your way of conveying, or if you are convincing enough, whether you have given the correct references or not, if there is a flow in the writing or not. So there might be a lot of questions that might come up in your mind when you critically read your own writing. That will help you to refine or make it more professional towards technical, from technical point of view. So that is one thing. That is the second step. That is critical for technical writing. Now the third thing is that you need to take another person, or you should put yourself into the shoes of another person and try to read the document. Of course, if you have written the document, you can understand and you know what you have written. But if somebody else is going to read, what will happen? For example, the other person could be a reviewer, it could be an evaluator or examiner, or somebody who is going to examine your writing. So now you have to read your own document with the point of view that an external reader is reading that one. ठीक है, it's not difficult. अब आप कोई भी चीज लिखते हो, if you are going to write something, Of course, you can start thinking that maybe you should switch your role. You should switch your role as an examiner or as a reader or as a reviewer. And now you are going to read your own paper, own document. Now you need to be convincing, and you need to convince the reader what is written and whether it is acceptable or not. So now more questions will arise when you are going to read your own document with the perspective that you are the reader, or if you are thinking that somebody else is going to read this document, more questions will come up, and those questions will help you to further refine your document. Haji, everybody with me on this point? ये जो 3 points हैं, they are very critical for technical writing. So technical writing, let the reader understand whatever you have written. That is the summary of the technical writing. If your writing is technically sound, that means you can convey your concept or your new knowledge to other people, and they will be convinced, and you will be convincing, or you can convince them that your finding or new knowledge is sufficient enough to be approved. Okay? Why you need an approval from other people? You might ask a question to yourself. If you have written and you think if it is correct, unless now, of course, if the document has to be authentic, or it has to be uh, like, for example, it should become an authentic document or published document, it should be approved by some people at least to at least, I mean, to get a recognition. Okay? If you have actually written a document which has some new knowledge and concepts, those should be approved by some professionals in your own field, and once they are approved, it will be further read by a lot of other people in the public domain and will be further approved. Okay? For example, if you have verified something based on an experimental um, based on experimental results, of course you are convinced that your finding is absolutely correct and convincing. What about other? How they think? Maybe the people from the industry or academia, or the professors in academia, might look it from a different perspective or angle, and they might found that something is missing or something is not correct or right. So, of course, that criticism is not something which you take as a negative criticism. Okay? That might help you to further. Um, uh, I mean, your document might become more convincing if you edit or correct them according to the remarks from some other people that are more experienced in your field. So, in short, technical writing is let the readers understand and convince them that your finding is correct. Put oneself into the shoes of the reader, or for example, of course you can do that, but at least to some extent you can do that. Okay? Not from the professional point of view, but at least from the technical reading and writing point of view. For example, you have written the document, and the next day you are going to hand over that document to your supervisor or maybe an examiner, or if you are going to present that document in a review committee. Now, day before that, you can read that document with the concept or idea that somebody else is reading. Of course, you don't have that vision or that perspective which other can have the next day, but of course, you can still look at the document, and maybe there might be again some questions, and you can edit or reorganize the document in a much better way, or that in a much better way that it becomes convincing for the reader or the reviewer. Now, include supporting material that assist you. For example, references are absolutely necessary for your technical writing or document to support your findings. Not only your own results, for example, if you have done some kind of simulation or some kind of experiment, to find or validate your new knowledge. Of course, that will be convincing, but other than that, you have to, like for example, in the field of engineering, you need to convince the people using some kind of mathematical expressions or some kind of derivation or some kind of proof, other than your experimental results, that your the finding is right, um, uh, absolutely correct, and it makes sense out of your research problem. Answer the questions that the reader might ask. So that is one important thing. So that is the attributes of technical writing. Now, structured and formal writing. Okay, so your writing should be structured and it should be formal. If it is an informal document, that will not be acceptable by other people when they are going to review or read it. So it should be a formal document. That means you have to be very, like, for example, you are you are going to address like a lot of people, and you have to write in a way that you have to convince most of them. Of course, you cannot convince everybody, even with the right references and right results, or whatever you have in your document as a proof. But if the majority of the people approve that one, then it's authentic. The document is authentic. Your findings are approved and recognized by other people, and for example, many people, and maybe it might help you to get a better opportunity for your in the phase of your professional growth. Now, purpose of technical writing, for example, paper writing, what was done before, why it was done, report the results of a research work. It should typically end with the recommendations and what should be done next. So this is something which makes a structure of a document. So you see the first thing, what was done. Okay, this addresses the literature review as well as your own finding prior to your current or current new knowledge. ठीक है, हो सकता है आपका जो for example, you are working on a project and that project has uh, a sequence of findings, and you are going to publish them one by one. So there must be some kind of flow between uh, the findings, and so you need to summarize what was done before, how it was done, and what was outcome, and now how that is linked with your new findings or knowledge that we are going to share in the current document. So that is something which is what was done. Why it was done, of course, that is the significance of the work that was done before. For example, when you are going to summarize everything in a literature review, you need to summarize that point of from the point of view that it relates to your problem statement or problem research problem, right? It should be aligned with your research problem. The finding or the summary of a literature review should be aligned with your research problem, or at least the problem that you are going to solve. So everything makes sense in this case. It is not every section of a technical document is written randomly. Everything is connected and it is structured and organized in such a way that it makes sense when you are trying to read a document, a technical document. Now, report the results of a research work. Of course, you are going to report whatever your finding is. So that will help you to support your findings and your new knowledge. Okay. So sometimes technical documents, for example, in a conference, what is the difference between a paper published in a conference and the paper published in a reputable journal? The difference is quite clear. The effort that has been put in a conference paper is not that extensive as compared to the efforts that have been put in for a journal paper. Now, what those efforts are in terms of your findings, in terms of your problem solution to the problem. For example, if you have done simulation to prove something, that might be sufficient for the conference paper, but that might not be acceptable for a journal or reputable journal paper. Because if you look at the two categories of these kind of publications, the journal publication is have a much higher weightage as compared to the conference paper. But of course, conference paper is acceptable. It could be a first version of your research findings of your research problem, and you can extend that one to a publish, for example, a journal paper. Now, that was the approach that when I was doing my PhD, my supervisor asked me to first write conference papers, and once my work was matured enough, then we went for journal paper, and it was quite easy for me to transit from the conference paper to the journal paper, because of course I can republish it, but something might be added or extended so that it becomes a journal paper. Now, one question that you might ask from the ethics point of view, that can you republish your own work? Ethically, it is not correct. The same document that you have published in a conference, for example, or in some publishing or in sports, or have been submitted to some publisher and it has been accepted, the same document cannot be republished. It violates the conditions for the copyright, or terms and conditions for the copyright. But on the other hand, the same paper can be extended and modified with new knowledge and further. For example, you are extending your research paper. You have, for example, findings A, B, and C. Now you are going to extend your paper to the findings D, E, and F. So whatever you are going to, for whatever you are going to extend your paper, it will be linked to your previous findings, and it makes sense. And of course, that can be published. Okay? So that is extremely important that you need to understand. The same document which has been published before, and once the copyright has been transferred to the publisher, you cannot republish it unless it is modified or extended with some new information and knowledge or some new results. Okay? So let's come back to the attributes over here: reports the results of the research work. So you already know that it should typically end up with the recommendations. For example, you are going to recommend some future work, for example, or what should be done. For example, if you have found something and still it is not applicable, you can recommend its application, or you can recommend what next could be done in terms of research for that work. Now, writing in the first person is less authoritative and discouraging. Writing in the third person is acceptable style in reputed journals and books. Background information should be provided if and only if the targeted readers need it. Now, what is basically this is a very important point from the technical writing point of view. Let's focus on this one. First person writing. Third person writing. So these are the two terms which are very important. Now, for example, you are the writer or the author. You are going to you are going to basically for example, you are going to write a technical document as an author, for example, and you are the first person. If you write that document for your own self, that is the first hand writing or first person writing. So if it is written for your own self, it's the first person writing. ठीक है. Now that is highly discouraging because you are not considering anyone else to read that document or let it approve, or if somebody should be convinced based on your finding or not. That is not part of this process now. So that is absolutely not good. Now, what about if there is a second person over here and there is a third person over here? For example, this is the reader. And this is the reviewer. Let me see first, is the diagram on the next page or not? No. Okay. So now whatever you are going to write for the reader, that could be something which is a second person writing. And if you are going to write something for the reviewer, that will be a third person writing. So what is the difference in this case? The writing in the third person is an acceptable style in the reputed journal and books. Now, how will you address? हाँ जी, अब ये तो एक सारी एक सिंपल डेफिनेशन थी, ठीक है, लेकिन अब इसका मतलब क्या है? Let me focus on this one. If I try to find, I found out this. We discovered this. Or I know that, something like this. This is all first person writing, which is not acceptable in most cases for technical writing. Now, what should we do? We should write in the third person. You are not going to say something directly about yourself. For example, you will say the finding is आगे जो continue कर सकते हो उसको, ठीक है? It has been observed ठीक है? It has been observed the results are, ठीक है? So this is all third person writing. हाँ जी, क्लियर हो गई ये बात? Everybody with me on this point?
Yes, sir, yes.
ठीक है? So you are not going to address yourself. You are not even going to address the second person. Second person से क्या मतलब होगा? अब मिसाल के तौर पे, let's look at, this is a triangle. This is you. This is, for example, what do you call this?
Reader.
Reader कह लो या the person whom you are talking. So, for example, addressee. या इसको क्या कहना चाहिए, इंग्लिश में क्या कहना चाहिए, जिस पर्सन को आप मुखातिब करते हो क्या होता है उसको? अम, हाँ जी, एड्रेस ही होता है ना, एड्रेस ही। ओके, इसको और आसान मैं इसमें कर देता हूँ, द पर्सन बीइंग एड्रेस्ड और द पर्सन बीइंग एड्रेस्ड। ठीक है।
जिस तरह आपने देखा द फाइंडिंग इज, उसमें आप कहेंगे यू फाइंड दिस,
चलो फर्स्ट
मतलब
दिस इज द रीडर, फॉर एग्जांपल दिस इज द रीडर, और यू कैन से दैट you are basically trying to talk to this person and try to convince something about your findings. ठीक है, this is you, this is the reader for whom you are going to address, or you are going to uh, convince, or you are going to convey your findings or knowledge to this person. ठीक है, but the point is over here that you are not going to address him or her directly. You will address this person through another person. ठीक है, this is your third person. ठीक है, अब इसकी एक बेसिकली रिप्रेजेंटेशन है, लेट मी फाइंड इट ऑन द वेब। हाँ जी, अब ये थोड़ा सा मैं इसको और मजीद मजीद क्लियर कर दूँ, दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। अब जो आप अब मैंने जो आपकी नेक्स्ट असाइनमेंट होगी उसमें ये चीज मैं असेस करूंगा, सो ये दिस शुड बी मेड एब्सोल्युटली क्लियर। So let me first of all find something useful on the web from the third person for writing point of view. Um,
सर ये जो असाइनमेंट जो ड्यू है नेक्स्ट मंडे को, उसकी बात कर रहे हैं आप?
नहीं, उसमें नहीं है ये चीज। ऑफ कोर्स उसमें भी
ऑलराइट
है इनडायरेक्टली। अगर आप ये, अब मैं उसमें असेस नहीं करूंगा ये चीज, ठीक है,
ऑलराइट
लेकिन
श्योर
लेटर ऑन जो आपकी नेक्स्ट असाइनमेंट होगी आफ्टर दिस वन, इन दैट आई विल असेस दिस पार्ट।
ऑलराइट श्योर
ठीक है, सो okay, let me find images or something that might be useful. Yes, this could be interesting. Share screen. Okay. हाँ जी, so can you see this? हाँ जी, किसका माइक ऑन है?
यस सर आई कैन सी
Okay. Now here you can see that in this, हाँ जी, ये फिगर आपको नजर आ रही है?
यस सर
यस सर, आ रही
Okay.
है।
The first person क्या है? I, we, ठीक है? So this is first person. Second person is you, ठीक है? Third person is he, she, it, they, ठीक है? और इसी तरह मैंने जैसे बताया, इट हैज बीन ऑब्जर्व्ड, उसमें किसी आप किसी पर्सन को एड्रेस नहीं कर सकते कर डायरेक्टली। सो दैट इज समथिंग एन ऑब्जर्वर व्हिच यू आर व्हिच इज नॉट फिजिकली प्रेजेंट ओवर देयर। ठीक है,
एक्सक्यूज मी
इसके
सर,
अलावा जी,
इसमें हम लोग इस तरह कर सकते हैं एज पर रिसर्चर्स एड्रेस करने का तरीका।
मतलब कैसे, मैं आपकी
तो
बात ही
जिसमें
समझा।
आपने कहा था ना, एज पर फाइंडिंग्स इट इज फाउंड आउट एज पर स्टडीज,
जी जी जी, बिल्कुल।
उसका उसमें हम लोग इस तरह भी एड्रेस कर सकते हैं ना, इट हैज बीन derived by researchers or it has been observed by researchers।
आप बाय द ऑथर कह सकते हो, इट हैज बीन ऑब्जर्व्ड बाय द ऑथर, ऑफ कोर्स दिस इज फाइन। ये थर्ड पर्सन राइटिंग हो जाएगी आपकी। ठीक है, ओके, नाउ लेट्स अब यहाँ इस स्लाइड में देखो कि आपके पास जो है इस प्रेजेंटेशन में फोर टाइप्स ऑफ पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू। फर्स्ट पर्सन, आई एम टेलिंग द स्टोरी, द कैरेक्टर इज इन द स्टोरी। ठीक है, सेकंड पर्सन, द स्टोरी इज टोल्ड टू यू, दिस पीओवी इज नॉट कॉमन इन फिक्शन। ठीक है, थर्ड पर्सन लिमिटेड, द स्टोरी इज अबाउट ही और शी, द नरेटर इज आउटसाइड द स्टोरी। हाँ जी, ये चीज क्लियर हो गई। दिस इज द मेन आइडिया ओवर हियर।
यस
यहाँ से अब ये चीज मैंने काफी हद तक ये मैं यही फाइंड करना चाह रहा था। नरेटर कौन होता है?
जो स्टोरी बता रहा होता है।
हाँ जी, मिसाल के तौर पे अगर आपके पास एक आपने कहीं एक इवेंट ऑब्जर्व किया है, ठीक है, और आप क्या करोगे, आप कहीं किसी और जगह जाते हो और कुछ लोगों को आपने एक्सप्लेन करना है या आपने बताना है कि क्या हुआ था, तो क्या करोगे? थर्ड पर्सन जो एड्रेसिंग होगी उसमें क्या होगा? द स्टोरी इज अबाउट ही और शी, ऑफ कोर्स दैट इज नॉट अबाउट यू, दैट इज नॉट अबाउट द पर्सन whom you are addressing, and you are not part of the story, you are just a narrator. ठीक है, मतलब अपने आप को आप पूरी चीज में से निकाल लोगे, ठीक है, मतलब कि इसका मतलब है कि द स्टोरी इज अबाउट समवन एल्स एंड यू आर नॉट पार्ट ऑफ द स्टोरी. क्लियर?
यस सर।
The fourth one is a little bit difficult thing, जो basically technical writing का part नहीं है. The narrator has full access to the thoughts of all characters. अब fiction में यही होता है, ठीक है. अब नॉवल पढ़ रहे होते तो क्या होता है? हाँ जी, जब नॉवल पढ़ रहे होते तो क्या होता है? जब आप जो ऑथर है, जो जो राइटर है नॉवल का, उसमें उसके पास फुल एक्सेस है जो करेक्टर उसके अंदर एग्जिस्ट करते हैं, राइट? लेकिन ऑफ कोर्स जो फिक्शन है या जो नॉवेल्स हैं, दे आर फार फार फ्रॉम टेक्निकल राइटिंग पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. It basically they violate the very important factor of technical writing. In technical writing you should be very much honest about your findings, and you have to reproduce whatever you have found in the technical document. If you are going to change anything for some reason, that will be the violation and against the ethics of technical writing. Okay? Now, sometimes when you are trying to write a technical document, you think that maybe I can change something, I can change the results, I can change something, I can deceive people by saying something else. Now, remember, the technical knowledge that you have is much less compared to the people outside or in academia or industry. They might be able to identify the falsification or fabrication in your technical document very easily. ठीक है, I have seen this. ठीक है, अब होता ये है कि जैसे अब let's say a professor from an academic institute might be able to identify the weakness or maybe the missing points or missing information or falsification or fabrication in a technical document very easily, because the professor is usually a very experienced person from the technical writing point of view as well as the technical information and knowledge of the field. ठीक है, तो ये चीज बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट है. दिस इज एक्सट्रीमली इंपॉर्टेंट दैट यू डोंट फॉल्सिफाई एनीथिंग इन दैट केस. सो दिस इज एब्सोल्युटली नॉट एक्सेप्टेबल इन टेक्निकल राइटिंग. सो बट दिस इज द प्रॉपर वे ऑफ राइटिंग. ठीक है, आप कभी भी ये नहीं लिखोगे कि मैंने ये फाइंड किया है या मेरी ये फाइंडिंग है या ये मेरी ऑब्जर्वेशन है या मैंने ये चीज डिस्कवर की है या मैंने ये किया है, या आप ये भी नहीं लिखोगे कि मिसाल के तौर पे जैसे आप किसी को मतलब let's say you are trying to write something in your literature review or trying to document someone else's work in a literature review. ठीक है, अब उसमें तो आप बेसिकली समराइज करोगे जो किसी और का काम, तो उसमें आप कैसे एड्रेस करोगे इवन विद द थर्ड पर्सन राइटिंग? हाँ जी, हाउ यू आर गोइंग टू एड्रेस द अदर्स वर्क इन लिटरेचर रिव्यू? जी, कैसे करोगे?
They found they
Now the story is about he or she. The narrator is outside out of the story. ठीक है, so that means you will not be part of that research, you will not claim anything out of it, but you are going to just say that uh, for example, it has been observed in this reference that uh, the results are something like this. ठीक है, अब बेसिकली उसमें आप क्या करोगे? डायरेक्टली ऑथर को एड्रेस नहीं करोगे, या या ऑथर्स को, यानी इस तरह नहीं होगा कि अब मिसाल के तौर पे जिस तरह मैं किसी से बात कर रहा हूँ, ठीक है, अब हो सकता है कि मैं अ, जिसको एड्रेस कर रहा हूँ उसी की कोई बात जो हो, वो बात जो है वो उसी को बता रहा हूँ। सो दैट इज समथिंग विच इज नॉट द राइट वे, ठीक है। इवन व्हेन यू आर गोइंग टू राइट अ लिटरेचर रिव्यू, यू शुड बी in the position of third person writing, ठीक है। You should not address the author directly, you should not address the person by name, or you should not identify anything. You should be writing in a formal way, so that you are going to address indirectly the person and his or her finding, ठीक है। So that is basic idea. So एक दो चीजें और देख लेते हैं यहाँ. Let's look at this one. First person, I, me, my, mine, ours, myself, we, ourselves. Second person क्या होगा? You, yours, yourself, or yours. Third person क्या होगा? He, she, him, they, them, herself, hers, himself, his, themselves, their, and so on. ठीक है? I think it's now quite clear. So जितनी भी आपकी technical writing होगी, you are not going to address somebody directly. It should be a formal writing. Let's look at one of them. First person, we shall defend our island, um, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. This is all first person writing. Now let's look at that, the same thing that can, how that can be written in third person. The people will defend, or they will defend their island, whatever the cost may be. They will fight on the beaches. They will fight on the landing grounds. They will fight in the fields and in the streets. They will fight in the hills. They will never surrender. Clear हो गया?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Third person, only, अब ये भी नहीं है. This is against something which is not correct. Remember that writing in the third person should be natural and easy. You probably want to write the first draft in the third person and see how it works out. If you are unsatisfied with the quality, just write the draft in your usual first person style and then later on change it to the third person using the technique below. ये कौन सी टेक्निक है? एग्जैक्टली वही चीज़ है जो मैंने आपको थोड़ी देर पहले बताई है कि क्या करोगे आप, फ्री राइटिंग के साथ उसको लिखो, ठीक है। उसके बाद अपना क्रिटिकल माइंड ऑन करो, और जब फ्री राइटिंग कर रहे होगे तो क्रिटिकल माइंड स्विच ऑफ कर दो। उसके बाद अपने ही डॉक्यूमेंट को रीड करो और रिव्यू करो विद द क्रिटिकल माइंड स्विच ऑन। जी
Excuse me, sir. सर
जी
मताल अली इज अनेबल टू ज्वाइन दी क्लास. वो कह रहा है कि मैं लिंक एंटर कर रहा हूँ, आईडी एंटर कर रहा हूँ, लेकिन हो नहीं पा रहा.
ठीक है। अच्छा चलें, कोई बात नहीं, वो जब अटेंडेंस होगी देख लेगा। मैं अब बहरहाल अब क्या किया जा सकता है, अगर लिंक को अब उसको, हाँ जी, उसको ये इन्फॉर्म कर दें कि एलएमएस पे जाके क्लिक करें लिंक, बाकी कोई और लिंक काम नहीं करेगा, ठीक है।
ओके
मैं
सर.
कई दफ़ा ईमेल में कर चुका हूँ कि एलएमएस से आप लॉग इन होंगे, एलएमएस के अंदर जाएं, उसके अंदर जूम का सेक्शन है आपके कोर्स के अंदर, उसके अंदर एक लिंक है, उसको क्लिक करें, उसके अलावा कोई और लिंक नहीं चलेगा, ठीक है। Okay, now coming back over here. So this is, and after that, what is the next step? You are going to review and revise your document with the observation that if the third person is going to, if it is written in the third person writing, ठीक है। तो ये चीजें, this is extremely important. अगर आप इन चीजों का ख्याल नहीं रखोगे तो आपका जो डॉक्यूमेंट है, चाहे आपकी फाइंडिंग या जो रिसर्च वर्थ है या रिसर्च डॉक्यूमेंट, जो रिसर्च वर्क है उसकी वर्थ जो बहुत ज्यादा है, या आपका जो काम है बहुत वर्थफुल है, इवन देन इट विल नॉट बी एक्सेप्टेबल, ठीक है। सो दैट इज वन ऑफ द वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर इन राइटिंग टेक्निकल डॉक्यूमेंट। ठीक हो गया? हाँ जी, everybody with me on this point?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now let's move on to the अच्छा, oh sorry, so I have to switch this. Oh, okay. Attributes. Okay, so writing in the first person less authoritative and are discouraged in technical writing. Writing in the third person is an acceptable style and reputed journals and in reputed journals and books, and that is the only acceptable style or the way of writing a technical document. Another important point is background information should be provided if and only if the targeted readers need it. Interestingly, if you have read few technical papers, you might have observed that it is not written like a textbook. Not all information is provided in the technical paper. And the reason is that it is not needed because it is addressed to the people already with the background in that specific field. A technical professional paper cannot be read by anybody with any kind of knowledge. I mean, with a very less knowledge in the field. For example, if you ask me to review a technical paper of civil engineering or maybe a mechanical engineering, I might not be able to do that, even for a very simple paper from the technical point of view. The reason is that I do not have the basic understanding and background information to read that technical paper. On the other hand, I can review paper of electrical engineering very easily because I have the basic understanding and knowledge that is required to read and understand that paper. So you see that most of the technical documents are written with the information only needed for the readers with sufficient background. It is not written like a textbook. Okay? You do not need to write everything in a technical research paper. On the one, okay, on the contrary, if you look at the MS thesis or PhD thesis, usually that is quite long. It has many pages. For example, it could be 100 or 200 pages document. Now, of course, that should be written like a textbook. You can start with some chapters which might cover the basic information and knowledge that is required to understand the research that has been conducted in the thesis for the thesis. Okay? So that is extremely important that you need to understand the difference between a technical research paper and the thesis. ठीक है? इसी तरह मिसाल के तौर पे let me give you one more example. If you buy a home appliance equipment, there comes a manual along with that, operating manual. ठीक है? वो operating manual क्या कहता है? That is a document written in such a way that you can understand things very easily. ठीक है? Now, on the other hand, if a service manual is accompanying that appliance, that service manual is intended for technicians and engineers, not for the user or consumer. If the consumer do not have sufficient information and knowledge to understand that one, it is useless for the person. Similarly, जो industry में technical documentation है, usually that is not very comprehensive or somebody to understand very easily. ठीक है? अब जारी बात है, अगर फर्ज करो कि if I'm interested to look at what new work has been done, for example, in new kind of batteries, ठीक है? अब जिस तरह अब पिछले 10-20 साल के अंदर जो बैटरी टेक्नोलॉजी है वो बहुत ज़्यादा एडवांस हो गई है in terms of capacity and in terms of energy density It has improved very much. आज के दौर में आपके देखो कि आपके जो स्मार्टफोन की बैटरी है, that has a very long बैकअप टाइम जो है आपके पास बहुत ज़्यादा मिल जाता है. इसी तरह जो आपकी लेड एसिड बैटरीज हैं, they have improved. lithium ion batteries हैं. Now, if, for example, I'm going to look what has recently been done in the battery technology, I'm going to look into papers where, and if I'm going to find few papers which have some relevant information about recent research and work that has been done on batteries, I might not be interested in the background and lengthy explanation about the basics of the battery. That might not be of any interest to me because I already know that. What I'm looking into the new techniques and technology that has been developed in the past 6 months or 1 year. So that is my objective. If that is my objective, I do not need any information which might have some basic concepts or basic information. I might be interested in directly looking at the idea and the techniques that have been developed in the past 1 year. So that is the idea over here. On the other hand, sometimes, for example, what happened, for example, there's a new kind of architecture that is emerging, computer architecture that is emerging nowadays. And if I'm interested in finding out what new things have been done in that kind of architecture, I can find a lot of research paper. But if, for example, if my background is not sufficient to understand that, then of course, those papers are not intended for me. First, I need to acquire knowledge, or maybe I need to study a lot before I will be able to understand those technical research papers. Now, the next thing that is important from the technical writing point of view as attribute is the style. The way of technical document is written, it is extremely important that you follow a specific style. If you write in any way you like, that might be very disturbing for the readers because they might not be able to follow a specific style that they expect for the publication. So accurately presenting data, facts, results, and theories in the structured way and organized in the right way is extremely helpful for the reader to understand the things that you want to convey in your technical document. The format, order and actual layout of document. For example, introduction, procedure, results, discussion, that how it is organized and structured in this way. It is the format. Now, for the second last assignment that I assigned you, I asked you to strictly follow the template that has been uploaded to LMS. And the reason for that was, if the document has not been written according to that template, it might become very difficult for me to evaluate that literature review. ठीक है, क्यों? उसकी वजह क्या है? Because I'm expecting to evaluate a certain style and format in a specific manner. Of course, you don't have any constraint in writing. You can write it any way you like. But at least the structure, the style, and the format should be followed so that the reviewers, the editor, and the public people in the public domain should be able to follow whatever you have written. ठीक है? अब एक बड़ा जो issue ये है कि जितने भी publishers हैं, they have their own style and format. There is no standard format and style for any one technical document. ठीक है? मिसाल के तौर पे जैसे मैंने आपको बताया है, for IEEE, there is a specific style and format for each journal they have, and that differs a little bit. For example, in another kind of publication, like for example in Nature, they have their own format, and they usually provide a template so that people should follow their style and format to write a technical document. ठीक है? सो हाँ जी, ये चीज अभी तक क्लियर है सब कुछ?
सर इसमें एक क्वेश्चन है
जी पूछें।
अभी जो फॉर्मेट हम फॉलो कर रहे थे पहले जो आपने प्रोवाइडेड था वो तो ठीक था, हम उसने हमने रिसर्च रिव्यू की, ठीक था, लेकिन
जी
अभी जब हम उसको अपने अपना डॉक्यूमेंट करने जा रहे हैं, एनालिसिस करने जा रहे हैं, कुछ डाटा पुट करने जा रहे हैं, उसमें कुछ टेबल्स हैं, टेक्निकल डाटा है, वो उस फॉर्मेट में फिट नहीं आ रहा, तो उसको
नहीं
क्या
आएगा, लाजमन आएगा।
रीडिजाइन?
ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता कि वो जो आप लिख रहे हो वो जो है IEEE स्टाइल में प्रॉपरली फिट ना हो सके। आप अगर आप फॉलो करो, अब मैंने अगर जो डॉक्यूमेंट आपको प्रोवाइड किया है, अगर आप उसको आप उसमें इंफॉर्मेशन सफिशिएंट नहीं है, तो आप IEEE का जो किसी भी के जर्नल का जो स्टाइल है, फॉर्मेट है, उसको फॉलो कर सकते हो। ठीक है, ओके, लेट मी शो यू फॉर एग्जांपल, let me get to that style and format। हाँ जी, आप यही फॉलो करोगे। अगर आप ये फॉलो नहीं करोगे तो देन यू विल बी इन let me let okay IEEE reference guide। ठीक है, look at this one, citing references, the detail of how you are going to cite the references, the style for books, conferences, course, data sheets, handbooks, manuals, software, online, periodicals, reports, standards, thesis, BS, MS, and PhD, government documents, unpublished document, and the websites. So you see, everything is given in this case, in this document. Just try to find this one. This is 2018 document, IEEE reference guide. That will help you to fit everything, whatever you weigh, whatever you like, whether it's table, whether it is data in any form, it's charts, or it may be plots or something like that. You can fit any way you like. Okay, इसमें सारी information आपके पास given है. So whatever, in this case, what you are going to follow, uh, periodicals. ठीक है, so basic format of okay, this is basically all about references। ठीक है, आप references कैसे लिखोगे? This is not a, okay, let me get to that document। ये जो सही नहीं है, this is writing lab 9, sorry, that document was a different thing। चलो कोई भी देख लो, IEEE transaction, sorry, okay, citation guidelines। ठीक है, let me give that, get that right style। This is all about references। 9, this is all about references। Editorial style, let me get to some transaction that, yes, right is not going, okay, maybe this is just try, let me डाउनलोड करना पड़ेगा। ओके, आई थिंक डॉक है, ठीक है। Okay, look at this one. So this is basically author center for IEEE. Here you can find all resources, IEEE template selector, ठीक है। इसमें से आप टेम्पलेट सेलेक्ट कर सकते हो। किस में करना है आपने? लेट मी शो यू। Transactions in general, this is you are going to follow, not magazine, not conferences, ठीक है। Then select publication, ठीक है। Let's close, let's take the, for example, engineering management. Engineering management review, engineering management. Engineering. नहीं वही है रिव्यू, ठीक है। अब मिसाल के तौर पे मैं इसको फॉलो करता हूँ। किधर गया? कंप्यूटर ये सेलेक्ट फॉर्मेट, ठीक है। ओरिजिनल रिसर्च ब्रीफ, ठीक है। अब आप बेसिकली आपके पास दो ऑप्शंस हैं, यू कैन सेलेक्ट लेटेक और वर्ड, एमएस वर्ड। So let's move on to MS Word. Your request template is available below. ठीक है, download template. So you can download this template very easily and can fit everything. ठीक है। अब मैंने आपको यहाँ डिटेल में बता दिया है कि from where you can find the template. It is just IEEE website. ठीक है। So there you can select which link basically I've used. I use this one, IEEE article template. Follow this one. Clear? हाँ जी, everybody with me on this point? If I found out that you are not following IEEE style, your marks will go down. So pay attention to this one, please. ठीक हो गया? हाँ जी, मेरे ख्याल में आपका सवाल का जवाब काफी डिटेल में मिल गया। ठीक है? हाँ जी, everybody with me on this point?
जी सर।
Okay. So now let's cover a few more things. So basically this is the idea. उसके बाद यहाँ ये complete नहीं है, discussion के बाद conclusion, recommendation for future work references. So अगर आप देखो तो आपका जो पेपर है that is introduction और review, जो आपका literature review और introduction है that could be one section or it could be two different sections. अब मैंने आपको लास्ट टाइम बताया था कि आपका लिटरेचर रिव्यू इंट्रोडक्शन से पहले भी आ सकता है और बाद में भी आ सकता है, डिपेंडिंग ऑन द टाइप एंड हाउ यू आर गोइंग टू ऑर्गेनाइज एंड अरेंज योर पेपर. Then the procedure might come for the solution that you are going to propose. Then the results might come up, ठीक है, discussion, then conclusions, recommended for future work and references. ठीक है, so this is what I'm expecting you in the assignments. This is exactly what I'm expecting you to write or include in your research papers, or at least for the assignments that I'm going to evaluate. ठीक है, ये चीजें ये सिंपल फॉर्म में है, जरूरी नहीं कि एग्जैक्टली ये हेडिंग हो. अब प्रोसीजर आपका हो सकता है प्रोसीजर डिफरेंट हो, ठीक है, आपका जो मेथड है या अप्रोच है वो डिफरेंट हो, तो इसके अंदर सब हेडिंग्स आ जाएंगी या ये टोटली हेडिंग चेंज हो जाएगी. आपके पास हो सकता है रिजल्ट्स हो सकता है रिजल्ट्स ना हो सकता है complete discussion हो, ठीक है, so that can be omitted. So effective writing skills, effective writing skill are contributing factors for a successful career. अब आप में से बाज लोग सिर्फ ये सोच रहे होंगे कि जो टेक्निकल राइटिंग है that is limited to maybe academia or maybe something which might be very which might be only needed for writing MS thesis or PhD thesis or some kind of work like that. Now, let me clarify that actually technical writing skill will help you to excel in your career wherever you are, whether you are in academics or whether you are, or if you are even if you are in the industry. If you have a good technical writing skills, you will excel in your career wherever you are. Because sometimes, okay, let me give you one example. Sometimes people are very strong from the technical point of view, but their writing skill in terms of technical papers or technical documents is very weak. That means they might not be able to convey or convince people about the concept or about the ideas they have. On the other hand, some people are not very good in from the technical point of view, but their way of writing or convincing others from their technical writing is very effective. So those people can excel very well even though they don't have a very strong background. ठीक है? अब मिसाल के तौर पे let me give you one example. There are many professionals in the industry, in the internet, for example, in the international industry, in US, in Europe, which they only have BS degree. They only have BS degree, and they might be managers or they might be in the top ranking position in the technical row of the or technical hierarchy of the industry. And why are they are so much capable in that way? Because although they might not have a very strong background or information from the technical point of view, they might be they might have a very good way to express or to brief or to explain things from the technical writing point of view. ठीक है? Let me give you one more example. Uh, uh, हाँ जी. Let's, for example, uh, in any technical field, for example, in the industry, you have a sales department. ठीक है? Now, some of you might already know that without a sales department or maybe a marketing department, a company uh, cannot make money out of the products that they want to create or uh, uh, bring into the market. ठीक है? Why is that case? I know many people from my batch and from other, uh, uh, like for example, from engineering point of view, which are not very good engineers, but they have a very good way of expressing, or they can sell the things very easily. ठीक है? Why is that case? Because their writing and communication skills are so strong that they can convince others to buy the product. Even though, although of course they must have the background knowledge or technical knowledge to convince others, but usually that doesn't need to be that strong. That means they don't need to have a doctoral degree or master's degree, but if they have sufficient background to convince others from the technical point of view, their writing and communication skills will help them to excel in sales and marketing, even though they are engineers. हाँ जी, ये चीज क्लियर हो गई? अच्छा, most common reason part of the program. हाँ जी. What is in this context? Acha, okay. So why you need to be why you need to have a technical reasons for technical writing? Haan ji, what are the reasons for technical writing? Why you have to write technical documents? Haan ji, what is the most common reason for writing technical documents? हाँ जी, let's take an example of academia. You need to publish your research. That is one of the very common practice of writing technical documents. Let's talk about the industry. Everything uh, that has been done, or maybe each task should be documented. So you see, there's a technical writing. The product specification, data sheets, they should be documented in the industry. uh, for example, any kind of work, अब किसी भी किस्म का टेक्निकल काम जो है that should be documented. आज के दौर में of course things have changed a bit because now we have computers. Before that there were typewriters. You have a lot of editing tools, and the editing power has been increased so much that you can create very nice documents very easily. ठीक है, लेकिन on the other hand the technical documentation is there and will remain there as long as there's new knowledge, there are new findings, there are new products, there are new, for example, yes, anything which is new, that should be documented from the technical point of view. Now, effective grant proposals for funding. This is extremely important from an academic point of view. अब ये most common क्या होगा? अब program क्या हो सकता है? आपके पास हो सकता है कि एक project हो industry में, और उस project को जो भी काम हो रहा है, you need to document that one. In academia, for example, for a research program, you have to document everything. If it's a master's thesis or a PhD thesis, that should be part of that one. Another important example of reason for technical writing or for good writing is to get funding. Now, the funding could be for anything, for maybe industry need a funding, or you need to convince the investor, or maybe it is a grant for the academic research, or anything you want to, you can name it. For that one, you need to document the proposal in such a nice way from the technical point of view that it is convincing, and the reviewers of that proposal for funding should approve that. ठीक है, अब जो फंडिंग के लिए प्रपोजल्स लिखे जाते हैं, for example for HEC, for example HEC has a huge funding funds for research and other things. So the important thing is that the people sitting people who are going to evaluate those proposals will look for specific information in technical documents, and if the information and the writing style is in the proper way, that will be acceptable. Writing reports in the industrial organizations, I already told you, that is extremely important. ठीक है? So probably I will stop at this point. अगर आपको कोई सवाल है तो you can ask. हाँ जी, if you have any question, you can ask right now. Okay, then हाँ जी, assignment से मुतालिक कोई सवाल हो या कोई चीज़ आप डिस्कस करना चाह रहे हो, you can ask me right now. Okay, then let's have the attendance.
सर इसमें असाइनमेंट से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चंस
जी जी पूछिए.
एक तो सर उसमें आपने कहा था कि मर्ज करना है दोनों, जो पहला रिसर्च रिव्यू है और ये अभी जो इंट्रोडक्शन और कंक्लूजन.
जी जी
ये ऐसे ही है सर?
हाँ जी, बेसिकली आपका लिटरेचर, जो आपने लिटरेचर रिव्यू लिखा है उसको एक्सटेंड करना है. Just add 2 more pages of your new information that you want to include. For example, introduction हो सकता है आपकी जो डिस्कशन हो वो हो सकता है, आपका जो मेथड्स और प्रोसीजर्स हैं प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करने के लिए, उससे रिलेटेड इंफॉर्मेशन हो सकती है.
सर इसमें
मैं एक चीज यहाँ क्लियर करना चाह रहा हूँ. आई एम नॉट एक्सपर्ट इन योर फील्ड. ठीक है, आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू लुक इनटू द टेक्निकल साउंडनेस ऑफ योर राइटिंग. Instead, I'm going to evaluate based on certain criteria, like for example, if the writing style is correct, if the information is in the flow, okay, if the proper references have been cited or not, if the if the I mean if there is a flow in the document. I mean मैं जो assess करूंगा वो चीजें different है. Attributes आपने जो citation है और attributes है उनको properly consider किया है. Plagiarism तो नहीं है, ठीक है. कहीं से कोई चीज कॉपी पेस्ट तो नहीं की हुई. अगर कहीं से आपने कोई चीज उसको किसी और डॉक्यूमेंट की अपने डॉक्यूमेंट के अंदर शामिल कर रहे हो, उसको किस तरह एड्रेस किया गया है, ठीक है. सो दीज आर द थिंग्स व्हिच आई एम गोइंग टू लुक. हाँ जी, किसी और
सर
कुछ?
एक और क्वेश्चन है मेरा सर. एक तो फर्स्ट ये कि सर जो हमारा इंट्रोडक्शन जिस तरह आप बता रहे हैं लिटरेचर रिव्यू में सर, तो सर हम मतलब इसकी हेडिंग्स को अलग अलग सेपरेट भी कर सकते हैं. आई मीन फर्स्ट इंट्रोडक्शन की अलग हेडिंग दे के उसको सारा सीक्वेंस वाइज लिखते हैं और उसके बाद लिटरेचर रिव्यू के लिए हेडिंग्स के साथ सारा.
जी बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं.
और सर दूसरी बात ये कि सर बेसिकली लिटरेचर रिव्यू में था सर थोड़ा सा एक मैंने जो अभी फाइल अपलोड की थी, तो सर उसमें एक लाइन थी बेसिकली जो मतलब एक जिस तरह वेव्स हैं उसके अंदर वेव्स के नाम थे सर, वो नाम मैं चेंज नहीं कर सकता था, तो इसलिए सर उनको लिखा है. लेकिन ये है कि वो नाम्स को मतलब प्लेजरिज्म में उसने काउंट किया था. परसेंटेज कम ही है, लेकिन सर वो पूछना ये था कि जस्ट वो सिर्फ नाम है जो मेरा मतलब
ठीक
1%
है.
प्लेजरिज्म शो कर
अब
रहे थे.
मैं हाँ जी, मैं आपको एक बात बता दूं. आप जो ये जो सिमिलरिटी रिपोर्ट है, इसका हरगिज मतलब ये नहीं है कि आपने कॉपी पेस्ट किया हुआ है. अगर फर्ज करो किसी की 25% प्लेजरिज्म, 25% सिमिलरिटी रिपोर्ट है, ठीक है. इसका हरगिज मतलब ये नहीं है कि किसी ने कोई चीज़ कॉपी पेस्ट की है, ठीक है. अब जाहिर बात है, जब मैं डॉक्यूमेंट रीड करूंगा, जो मेरे पास एक तरफ रिपोर्ट होगी, ठीक है, सिमिलरिटी रिपोर्ट होगी, और दूसरी तरफ आपका डॉक्यूमेंट खुला होगा. जब मैं उसको देखूंगा, तो जो चीज़ें आप इतना तो मुझे समझ है कि जो टेक्निकल टर्म्स हैं वो जारी बात है आप चेंज नहीं कर सकते,
यस सर, एग्जैक्टली.
ठीक है. तो वो ऑफ कोर्स उसमें से कोई आपकी मार्क्स डिडक्शन या उसके जो एवेल्यूएशन है उस पर कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा, ठीक है. सो यू डोंट नीड टू वरी दैट मच.
ओके सर, एक लास्ट क्वेश्चन है वो ये कि सर हमारा पास मतलब अब ये लिटरेचर इंट्रोडक्शन को करके टोटल 6 पेजेस मिनिमम होने चाहिए हमारे सर, ऐसे ही है?
जी 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 बिल्कुल.
ठीक है सर, बहुत थैंक यू सर, आपका शुक्रिया.
नेक्स्ट सर, अभी जो हमने जिस तरह बात की कि अपने हम रिव्यू करने जा रहे हैं, इसमें प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट वगैरह अगर कुछ उसका कुछ पार्ट चेंज होता है, उसके लिए इंटीमेशन आपको करनी है या
नहीं
बस चेंज कर
नहीं, आप
देना
कर
है?
सकते हो, आप अपनी मर्जी से. मैंने आपको बताया कि आप आखिरी असाइनमेंट तक अपनी प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट भी चेंज कर सकते हो.
नहीं नहीं,
उसमें
आपको
कोई
इंटीमेशन कोई
नहीं,
करनी
मुझे
है
बताने की
कि
जरूरत
नहीं?
नहीं है. नहीं नहीं नहीं, कोई मसला नहीं है. मैंने आपको बताया टेक्निकल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से मैं आपकी रिपोर्ट या जो असाइनमेंट है उसको एवेल्युएट नहीं करूंगा. मैं और मेरा जो एवेल्यूशन क्राइटेरिया है दैट इज डिफरेंट. आई एम गोइंग टू लुक इनटू, लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ देयर इज अ प्लेजरिज्म, इफ द साइटेशन हैज बीन मार्क्ड करेक्टली, इफ देयर इज अ फ्लो, ठीक है. जो आपके पास एथिकल बैकग्राउंड्स हैं जो टेक्निकल राइटिंग की, वो आपने फॉलो की है या नहीं, ठीक है. ऑफ कोर्स अभी जो हम पढ़ रहे हैं चीज़ें, जैसे मैंने आपको बताया, हो सकता है किसी ने फ्री राइटिंग में लिखा हो उसको, हो सकता है किसी ने फर्स्ट पर्सन राइटिंग में लिखा हो. तो आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू एवेल्युएट फॉर टाइम बीइंग जो आपकी लास्ट जो असाइनमेंट सबमिट होगी. बट लेकिन जो जो ये आप चीज़ें पढ़ते जा रहे हो, ये आपकी नेक्स्ट असाइनमेंट का पार्ट बनती जाएगी.
राइट सर. सर एक और क्वेश्चन कि साइटेशन और गाइडलाइन, जो साइटेशंस की गाइडलाइंस और रेफरेंस की गाइडलाइंस हमने स्टडी की हैं,
जी जी.
उसमें जब हम कोई इंडस्ट्रियल कोई एक इंडस्ट्री से रिलेटेड अगर कोई उसमें प्रॉब्लम हम करने रिजॉल्व करने जा रहे हैं, तो उसमें कुछ डाटा टेक्निकल टर्म्स होती हैं, कुछ टेक्निकल डाटा होता है, पिक्चर्स होती हैं कुछ प्लांट्स की, उनको जब हम करेंगे यूज करेंगे, उसको
हम्म.
रेफरेंस किस तरह देना है, वो काइंडली थोड़ा सा उस पर गाइड दे दीजिए.
अब वो डिपेंड करता है. अगर पेटेंट है तो उसका पेटेंट का तो सारी इन्फॉर्मेशन अवेलेबल है. अब लेट मी ओपन दैट वन, ठीक है. मैं उसको ओपन कर लेता हूँ जो मैंने लास्ट टाइम आपसे शेयर की थी. टेम्पलेट. अभी ओपन हो जाएगा तो यू कैन सी दैट. ओके. सो हाँ जी, यहाँ देखो. लेट्स गो देयर. हैंडबुक्स. पेटेंट्स। ठीक है, अब बेसिक ये देखो, बेसिक फॉर्मेट फॉर पेटेंट्स व्हेन अवेलेबल ऑनलाइन। ठीक है, उसके अलावा मैं बताता हूँ आपको बेसिक फॉर्मेट फॉर मोस्ट कॉमन टाइप्स ऑफ अनपब्लिश्ड रेफरेंसेस। ठीक है, अब क्या होगा देखो, फॉर एग्जांपल over here the first thing comes is the name of the author. ठीक है, second thing is what kind of technical document it is private communication, so abbreviated। ठीक है, अब वो जो भी होगा मंथ ईयर आ जाएगी। ठीक है, इसमें एग्जांपल हम देख लेते हैं। हाँ जी, एक मिनट, जस्ट होल्ड ऑन। ए हैरिसन, प्राइवेट कम्युनिकेशन, मई 1995। बी स्मिथ, अब दिस इज द टाइटल ऑफ द unpublished document, an approach graphs of linear forms, unpublished। ठीक है, उसने लिख दिया कि दिस इज unpublished। बेसिक फॉर्मेट फॉर स्टैंडर्ड्स क्या होंगे? ठीक है, IEEE क्राइटेरिया फॉर क्लास IE इलेक्ट्रिक सिस्टम्स। ठीक है, इसी तरह और जी। तो बेसिक, अब अगर आप इसको फॉलो करना शुरू करोगे तो आपको खुद ही समझ आ जाएगी कि आपने कैसे लिखना है। ठीक है, हाँ जी, क्या सवाल था आपका? और कोई सवाल था?
सर वो मेरा सर इशू आ रहा था सर एक।
क्या चीज, क्या इशू था?
सर वो टर्निटिन से वो रिमूव हो गया था सर, मैं ड्रॉप
अच्छा,
ड्रॉप हो गया था सर।
ठीक है, आप मुझे ईमेल दोबारा करें और बताएं कि टर्निटिन से ड्रॉप हुए हैं, मैं आपको ऐड कर दूंगा। अब क्यों ड्रॉप हुए हैं मुझे नहीं पता, आई डोंट नो।
सर आपको मेल की सर, वो गलती से मैं असाइनमेंट वो सबमिट कर दी थी मैंने, तो मैं उसे दोबारा सेंड करना था उसे ना, प्लेजरिज्म
वो कोई बात नहीं है,
20% आ रहा था,
वो कोई
तो
बात नहीं,
उधर
वो कोई
डिलीट का
उसका
ऑप्शन आ
कोई
रहा था।
मसला नहीं है, कोई मसला नहीं, वो 20% इज फाइन, इट्स नॉट अ बिग डील। ठीक है, उसमें परेशान होने वाली कोई बात नहीं। दूसरी बात ये है कि अब क्योंकि अब नेक्स्ट असाइनमेंट आपने सबमिट करनी है, तो आप मुझे दोबारा ईमेल करोगे। मुझे सर याद नहीं कि आपका नाम और आईडी क्या था, तो आप मुझे एक दफ़ा दोबारा ईमेल करो, मैं आपको ऐड कर दूंगा। ठीक है,
हेलो
हाँ जी, कोई और चीज़
हेलो
पूछना चाह रहे हो?
सर एक चीज थी।
सर वो
अ,
सर वो 20% था, तो सर मैंने कम भी किया था, लेकिन वो मेरी 20%
कोई बात
वैसे ही
नहीं,
सबमिट
20% इज फाइन। हो सकता है कोई ऐसी चीज़ हो जो वो सिमिलरिटी में देख रहा हो जो उसमें शामिल नहीं होनी चाहिए थी, उसमें फिक्र करने की आपको जरूरत नहीं।
हुई सर। उस किया हुआ था
सर
सर,
मशीन के
रेफरेंसेस
में
को प्लेजरिज्म में काउंट किया हुआ था उसने।
वो अब छोड़ दो, आप उसको उसकी फिक्र नहीं करो। ठीक है, अगर वो रेफरेंसेस को काउंट किया हुआ है, जस्ट लीव इट, इट विल नॉट बी इवैल्यूएटेड बाय मी। ठीक है, मैं उसको
सर वो
इवैल्यूएट नहीं
मुझे
करूंगा।
सर मैं सर आपको मेल की थी तभी सर, प्लीज सर वो मुझे टर्निटिन पे कर दीजिएगा दोबारा सर।
मैं,
रोल
आप
नंबर
मुझे
1 ही
दोबारा
है
ईमेल
मेरा
करें,
सर।
इस वक्त मुझे याद नहीं, मैंने आपको कहा है दोबारा ईमेल कीजिए प्लीज। ठीक है, क्योंकि अब वो ईमेल बहुत पीछे चली गई होगी, मुझे नहीं इस वक्त याद कि आपका नाम और आईडी क्या है। जस्ट सेंड मी अ न्यू ईमेल। ठीक है, विद द इंफॉर्मेशन, विद द रिक्वेस्ट। ठीक है जी, ठीक है। और कोई
हेलो
चीज़?
सर, रोल नंबर 1
सर
प्रेजेंट है सर।
सर एक
हाँ जी,
सवाल था।
सर मैं मेल कर देता हूँ सर आपको।
जी हाँ जी, पूछें।
सर ये मशीन्स के अगर मैनुअल से कोई रेफरेंस दिया हो तो वो किस तरह करना है?
मैंने आपको बताया, अभी मैंने डॉक्यूमेंट ओपन किया था। आप इसको
तो
स्टैंडर्ड्स की फॉर्म में जा सकते हो, या इवन अनपब्लिश्ड डॉक्यूमेंट की फॉर्म में जा सकते हो। इवन जो है वो मैनुअल्स, इसमें डिटेल है। यहाँ मैं अब दोबारा आपको शो करता हूँ। बेसिक फॉर्मेट फॉर रिपोर्ट्स एंड हैंडबुक्स, ये लिखा हुआ है। मैं शायद यहाँ शेयर नहीं की हुई मैंने, लेकिन जब आप इसकी डॉक्यूमेंट के टेम्पलेट के अंदर जाओगे तो वहाँ बेसिक फॉर्मेट फॉर रिपोर्ट्स एंड हैंडबुक्स इज रिटन। ठीक है, उसको फॉलो करो। Okay, then let's have a attendance. Abdul Azim. Abdul Azim.
यस सर, प्रेजेंट
Abdullah.
प्रेजेंट।
Abdullah Mahmood.
Present, sir.
Adil Ahmed.
यस सर।
Adnan Kavi.
सर नान का भी।
Afaq Arif. Ahmed Bilal. Ahsan Javed.
यस सर, प्रेजेंट।
Arslan Zulfikar Ahmed.
यस सर।
Bilal Mahmood.
यस सर।
हाफिज अहमद मुस्तफ़ा,
प्रेजेंट सर।
मोहम्मद अब्दुल रहीम,
यस सर।
मोहम्मद अयाज शफीक, मोहम्मद हमजा ताहिर,
प्रेजेंट।
मोहम्मद हमजा,
प्रेजेंट सर।
हमजा अमजद,
यस सर प्रेजेंट।
हिदायतुल्लाह, इदरीस गुल,
प्रेजेंट सर।
इरम मुश्ताक, जुनैद इब्राहिम,
यस सर।
खुरम इकबाल,
यस सर।
खुरम शहजाद,
यस सर।
मतल अली प्रेजेंट था, ठीक है। मोहम्मद आफ्ताब मसूद,
यस सर।
मोहम्मद अली अशरफ,
प्रेजेंट सर।
सर हिदायतुल्लाह प्रेजेंट है सर।
मोहम्मद
इरम
बासित,
मुश्ताक प्रेजेंट है।
यस सर प्रेजेंट।
मोहम्मद आसिफ अशरफ, सॉरी मोहम्मद अली अशरफ, सॉरी मोहम्मद अली अशरफ,
प्रेजेंट सर। प्रेजेंट सर।
अच्छा ठीक है। मोहम्मद बासित,
यस सर।
मोहम्मद इमरान, मोहम्मद जावेद,
यस सर प्रेजेंट।
मोहम्मद एहसन खान,
यस सर।
मोहम्मद असद अली रजा,
प्रेजेंट सर।
मोहम्मद अवैस,
यस सर।
मोहम्मद अवैस आलम, मोहम्मद हाशिम अहमद खान,
यस सर प्रेजेंट।
मोहम्मद जमील आलम,
यस सर।
मोहम्मद कैसर सज्जाद,
प्रेजेंट सर।
मोहम्मद तलहा फैज, मोहम्मद तैयब आरिफ, मोहम्मद वासिफ सयाल, नवीद मजीद, कजाफी कमाल,
यस सर।
सादिक हुसैन, साकिब सईद, सैयद कासिम रजा,
यस सर।
सैयद मोहम्मद मुशाहिद हुसैन, सैयद राफील, सैयद राफील आबिद, उमे एमन,
यस सर।
उस्मान नवाज,
यस सर।
वजाहत मेहदी खान,
यस सर।
वलीद काशिर,
यस सर।
वासिफ हसन,
सर।
ठीक है। कोई रह गया?
यस सर।
सर नवीद
सर
मजीद।
राफील,
पूरा नाम क्या है? अच्छा नवीद, ठीक है, हो गया, ओके। हाँ जी,
सर सैयद रफील आबिद ऑनलाइन
सर
थे।
नवीद मजीद प्रेजेंट सर।
जी
नवीद मजीद सर।
हो गया। हाँ जी,
सर सैयद रफील आबिद अभी ऑनलाइन थे, अभी तो डिस्कनेक्टिविटी
सर
इशू
नवीद
है।
मजीद।
हो गया, नवीद
बारिश
मजीद हो गया।
अस्सलाम
और
वालेकुम सर। सर मैंने मेल कर दिए सर आपको।
ठीक है, इसके अलावा और कोई रह गया?
सर सैयद रफील आबिद ऑनलाइन थे अभी, काइंडली अगर मार्क करते हैं, वो भी थे, डिस्कनेक्टिविटी इशू है।
अच्छा, और ठीक है, दैट्स इट। ठीक है, ओके। मीनवाइल अगर कोई इशू होता है असाइनमेंट में मुझे बता देना, ठीक है? यू कैन सेंड मी एन ईमेल, ठीक है? ओके, अल्लाह हाफिज।
अल्लाह हाफिज़ सर।